Hi, so now I'm coming to you from Toronto, and I've been meaning to record this for some time. I actually wanted to record it whilst I was still in Peru, but in the last couple of days of the period there, we were very busy. A lot of talking, a lot of interpersonal time, and knowing that our time was ticking down, I really wanted to focus on I wrote down the things that I saw in the last ceremony, but I also wanted to focus on just being with the people there and enjoying the time that we had together as a group, because it was a really special group of people and we shared so much and went through so much together that it was the beginning, I think, of a lot of relationships, friendships that are going to continue for years to come. So I was just walking around exploring Toronto a little bit, and I just saw this big mural behind me. You see, sort of a little bit psychedelic, you might say, and I thought, okay, let's stop making excuses. Let's film in front of this place. It feels right. So I wanted to describe that last ceremony, and in the talking circle that preceded it, because our last two ceremonies were one day and then the next day, and we'd always had a kind of rest day in between before, so everybody was a little tense about that, a little nervous given the intensity of the experiences. But it also meant we had our talking circle the day after the third ceremony, and Don Howard explained that on the last ceremony usually they reduce the dose a little bit, although he said if you walk up with a winning smile and some kind of imploring expression that you really wanted to have a full cup, then you could. Like everything in that experience, everything was not compulsory and you're able to ask. You couldn't just do anything, but things were not prescriptive. And I was perfectly happy to have a smaller cup. Like he had talked about before, the ayahuasca tastes worse every time, and by this time it was pretty horrendous trying to get it down. So I can't imagine what it's like for people who've had it hundreds or even more times. My intention this time, as I held the cup in front of the mesa, was just love. I felt like I discovered some important things about myself, and I'd also been through some really difficult stuff. The beginning of each ceremony had been really intense and difficult, as I've described, and I thought, okay, let's see if I maybe don't need to see that nasty, toxic environment again. Let's see if I maybe can see something else. Because I felt like I've seen it, I think I've understood something about it, and to see it again would feel like unhelpful repetition, and I didn't want to feel like I was running away from it, but I do feel like I've sort of understood, and maybe if I haven't dealt with it, then I'm dealing with it. And so I thought of love, and as I sat down I started thinking about, even before I felt clear effects of the medicine, I started thinking about people who are important in my life, and I thought about my close family members, and I thought about my significant past relationships, and I thought about all the good times I've spent with those people and the important things that I've learned from those people in my life. And that then spread neatly into when I was under the medicine. So the Icaros kicked in, and instead of going into the horrible sort of lurid lights and so on, everything stayed in tones of blue and green, and there was a much more sort of nature focus going on. I saw like sprouting leaves. If there was a bit of purge-like imagery, it was like purging out grass and living plants and so forth. There was always a sense that I could have dived back into the nasty stuff, but I could sort of choose to look up and look at the different scenery. And after that initial period, again it felt like two periods, the initial period of the Icaros and the more visual, sort of inescapably powerful visual aspects. The next bit, I was able to just think back to periods of my life that I haven't given much thought to for some time, like flats that I shared with people who were important to me then. I mean, most of them still are now, but I was able to essentially re-enter those parts of my life and remember things I'd forgotten, remember special moments, remember moments of those friendships that were important to me, and when I was important to them as well. And there was no sadness associated even with moments that have passed, moments in my life that are over now, jobs that I had that I really enjoyed. The sadness wasn't there. It was just a sense of that was good, and feeling like I was putting out this sense of love. And in fact, I had moments when I was just sort of sitting there going, love, 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 and it was just feel like it was bursting out of me, out of my mouth, out of my face, out of my body. And I think on London Real they interviewed Chris Eubank quite recently, and he said what he thinks about when he wakes up in the morning is love, 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 love. And I thought when I heard that, I was like, well, screw that. That's just silly. That's just a silly thing to say. It's sort of twee and self-delusive, so self-deluding in some way. I don't think that now, because I sat there thinking this under the medicine, and that allowed me to sort of let go of that skepticism and that feeling, and I thought instead, wow, how powerful that feels, how incredible that feels to just be putting that out, to be able to think of walking up to people, not accosting them, but walking up to people you're going to interact with, friends and so on, and that's the energy coming out of you. It's just this positivity, and how great that feels. How great that feels for me, as well as obviously putting out a positivity which is going to go out to other people too. And I thought in depth about that. I spent the rest of the ceremony thinking through my relationships with the friends in my life now, the people who've been important to me recently and are currently. And wow, what a moment, what an experience, and so different to the ceremonies I had before. I mean, this didn't feel like a day off, it still felt like work being done, but it was more pleasant, it was more straightforwardly positive, and it taught me, or perhaps reminded me, maybe some part of both those things, about remembering all those positive things, not dwelling on going, well, that's gone, the past is over, thinking of negative moments. And you tend to remember the bad stuff, you tend to remember the relationships you've had that have gone wrong, and you remember why things ended rather than why they were alive in the first place. And I got to see some of those reasons why, and I got to think about those. And I thought about people who I had fallen out with, people who I don't really want to see again, but friends and so on, that happens sometimes. But I thought about them in a positive light, and I thought about, why am I carrying around negativity towards them? What's the need in that? They're on their path and I'm on mine. And like a lot of things with ayahuasca, it seems to me what I could know intellectually is one thing, but with the medicine I'm able to really know it and feel it emotionally, and that is where the change really comes in. And I hope that I'm able to try and learn how to do some of that without needing to be in ceremony in order to really experience it. I noticed, or rather a friend of mine noticed, I was telling him about my experiences. He said, I sound different. I don't know if I do, talking to a phone, sort of, I've got a timer in front of me in a sense of I don't want to take up too much of your time, but he said I was talking more slowly and I was talking more calmly, and I sounded like something has changed. And I was happy to hear that, and I can sort of feel it. I mean, like I just said, I'm aware maybe that's not quite true now, this moment, because I'm trying to get stuff out there, but just my interactions with people, I feel much calmer. And since, I'm in a city I've never been in before, and I feel so much more able than I've ever been to just go up to people and ask for their help. Just go up and ask, do you know where's a good place to eat here, or do you know where I can get a haircut, which I need to do. and I feel more able to just sort of be friendly and open and jokey. I think I've always been those things, but I've always felt like I was looking for approval when I did it. And now, I think in large part because of that fourth ceremony, I'm feeling much more like I want to give. I want to give myself this moment that I'm in with you, and I want to give it to you. And it's amazing how good that feels and how positive the responses are that I get from people, because I think they can tell it's not, I don't want something from them, and I'm not looking for their approval. I'm just trying to put out positivity, and that's pretty cool. And like with everything that has happened on this journey with ayahuasca, I hope it doesn't stop. I hope that I keep this going, and I hope that it's not a short-lived event and a short-lived change. A final thought: I already know I'm going back, and that doesn't mean nothing worked. I mean, I hope you can see that, and you know from what I've said. I don't want to go back immediately. My God, it's not that kind of thing. I don't want to get back. It's terrifying going to the Maloka. It's terrifying drinking that medicine. But I know that there's a lot more work to be done. There's a lot of questions about, what do I want to do with my life, and what's meaningful for me as a sort of career activity and so on, that never got dealt with. And I think that's because more important things had to be dealt with first, and ayahuasca knew that. So I need to go back, I need to do that. And I think next time I'm going to work with Wachuma as well, because of what I learned about it there. Don Howard described it as if ayahuasca is the feminine spirit of the Amazon, then Wachuma is the masculine spirit of the Andes, and the two work well together. Ayahuasca is the queen, the boss, of all these sorts of medicines, the most profound and intense, but Wachuma can be just as revealing, he explains, but it works a little differently. And he certainly hasn't invented, but he's practices and has brought back to some more prominence the idea of having ayahuasca ceremonies and then Wachuma ceremonies thereafter. So I think that's what I'll look towards, probably within the year, but I don't know exactly when. I will record something or other after a little more time has passed to sort of reflect on whether everything has just dried up and gone away. For the time being, that's it. And I can honestly say that it exceeded all of my hopes. I didn't get everything that I suppose that I hoped that I would, and yet it still exceeded all my hopes, because the feeling that I have now, the knowledge that I've gained about myself, but more importantly the way that my feelings have changed and my ability to feel about myself has changed. It's astonishing. And yeah, but I'm, like I keep saying, there's a voice in my head going, it might go away, it might go away. I fucking hope it doesn't. No, I'm going to try and make sure I work to make sure that it doesn't. It's been the most profound and important experience of my life, no exaggeration. So thank you for coming with me on this, and maybe it's put some ideas in your heads too. And I don't mean that you necessarily want to do the same thing, but I hope that some of me talking into this can send out some positive effects to other people too. So for now,